Imagine this. A billionaire CEO boards his private jet with his newborn baby, but within minutes, the child begins to cry, louder, sharper, and more desperate with every passing second. Nothing works. Not the flight attendants, not the father's desperate attempts. The baby's cries shake the cabin, driving every passenger to the edge of panic. And then, something unbelievable happens. A poor waitress, seated quietly at the back of the plane, stands up. Every eye turns to her. No one understands what she is doing, but when she takes the baby in her arms, the impossible unfolds. The cries stop. The cabin falls into silence, and what she whispers next leaves the powerful billionaire and everyone else on board in absolute shock. What secret does this mysterious woman hold? And why does the CEO's face turn pale with fear the moment she speaks? Stay with me until the end, because the truth will send shivers down your spine. And do not forget, like this video, subscribe, and hit the bell icon, because this story is one you will never forget. The private jet hummed in the silence of the night sky. But inside the cabin, chaos reigned. The billionaire CEO's infant wailed, his cries slicing through the air like shattered glass. The flight attendants exchanged nervous glances. The CEO rubbed his temples, frustration pouring off him like a storm. He had signed billion-dollar deals with ease, but the cries of his own child left him powerless. Passengers shifted uncomfortably. One woman whispered under her breath. Another man pressed, his hands over his ears. The baby's sobs grew sharper, desperate, piercing, and then she appeared, a waitress, not from the crew, not from the privileged circle. She was poor, dressed simply, with tired eyes that revealed long nights of work. She had been offered a seat in the back of the plane as a last-minute favor from a friend. And yet, she stood up. The cabin fell into silence. But not from the baby, from the audacity. Everyone stared as she walked slowly down the aisle. Her footsteps echoed louder than the engines. The CEO frowned, confused and irritated. "Sit down," someone muttered. But she ignored them. Her eyes locked on the baby. She stretched out her hands, calm yet commanding. The CEO's mouth opened, ready to protest, but his voice faltered. Something in her presence made him pause. The waitress whispered, something soft, rhythmic, unfamiliar. The baby's cries faltered, then stopped. The silence was so sudden, it sent chills across the cabin. The passengers froze. Disbelief etched on their faces. The CEO's jaw tightened, not in relief, in fear, because the lullaby she whispered was one he had heard before, years ago. A song that no one else should have known, and yet this poor waitress sang it. Word for word, the air grew heavy, his pulse quickened. His eyes narrowed on her face, and for the first time, he recognized something terrifying, something impossible. The CEO's chest tightened. That song. It had belonged to his past, buried, sealed, forgotten. The lullaby his mother once sang to him when storms rattled the windows of his childhood home. How could this woman know it? His throat went dry. The cabin seemed smaller, walls closing in, air thick with tension. Passengers leaned forward, captivated, whispering in disbelief. The waitress cradled the baby with effortless care. Her voice wove through the silence, carrying a weight beyond comfort. The baby slept, peaceful, breathing in perfect rhythm with her song. But the CEO could not breathe. He stared at her face, searching for answers, for cracks in the impossible. Her eyes flickered with something, recognition, as if she knew him, knew his secrets. The CEO rose slowly, his chair creaking in protest. "Where did you hear that song?" His voice cracked, harsher than he intended. The waitress lifted her gaze, unflinching. Passengers turned toward her, waiting for her reply. She smiled, but it was not a smile of kindness. It was the kind that chilled the blood, the kind that said she knew something no one else should. "I heard it," she whispered. "From the woman who sang it first." The CEO's skin prickled with cold. His mind raced. That was impossible. His mother had been gone for decades, and yet the waitress looked at him as though she carried a piece of her voice, a piece of her memory, or worse, a piece of her truth. The jet soared higher. The night outside darker than ever. But inside, the CEO felt trapped, spiraling into a storm far more dangerous than the cries of a child. The CEO's hands trembled. Though he tried to hide it, every passenger in the cabin seemed frozen in time, their eyes darting between him and the waitress. The engines roared outside, but inside, the only sound was the faint breath of the sleeping child. The waitress lowered herself into a seat, still holding the baby as if it belonged to her. The CEO's voice was sharp, low, almost a growl. "What do you mean? You heard it from her?" Her gaze did not waver. She traced the baby's tiny hand with her finger, as if remembering something far away. "Your mother," she said calmly. "She taught me." The words cut through him like shards of glass. It made no sense. No one outside his family had ever known that song. The CEO's mind spun. His childhood home, the locked garden, behind it. The whispers of neighbors he had ignored. He had buried. It all with wealth, with power, with control. And yet here she was, this poor waitress from nowhere, speaking truths that should have been impossible. The passengers shifted uneasily. They could feel it too, an unseen weight pressing against them, thickening the air. The CEO's voice cracked again, sharper now. "My mother is dead. For 30 years. The waitress finally tore her eyes from the baby and looked straight into his soul, the kind of look that stripped a man of all his armor. "Dead?" she whispered. Her lips curled, not in laughter, but in something far darker. "She is not as gone as you think." The CEO's knees weakened. The baby stirred faintly but did not cry. And then the cabin lights flickered once, twice. Passengers gasped. The waitress rocked the baby gently, her voice dropping lower, as though speaking to someone else entirely. "She said you would not remember. She said you would deny it. But blood never lies." The CEO's heart pounded against his chest, violent, desperate. His mind screamed to ask more, but deep inside, he feared the answer. The CEO's mouth opened, but no words came. Every nerve in his body screamed for control, yet his voice betrayed him. "What? Blood?" he whispered. The waitress tilted her head slowly, her expression unreadable. The baby shifted in her arms, eyes fluttering but not waking. She leaned closer, her voice sharp enough to cut the silence. "Your blood." "His blood." "My blood." The CEO staggered back a step, as if the floor beneath him had turned unsteady. Murmurs rippled through the cabin. Passengers exchanged bewildered glances, but no one dared interrupt. The waitress's words clung to the air, heavy and unshakable. The CEO's pulse raced in his throat. "You are lying," he hissed. The waitress's lips curved again into that unsettling, almost smile. "If I am lying," she said softly, "then tell me, why does he stop crying only when I hold him?" The question struck him like a blow. The baby's tiny chest rose and fell in perfect peace. The same child who had screamed until his lungs rattled. The same child who would not rest in his own father's arms, but in her embrace. Silence. The CEO's vision blurred with panic. This was not possible. It could not be. And then the lights flickered again. Sharp groan reverberated through the plane's metal frame. Several passengers gasped. The captain's voice never came over the intercom. Only silence, unnatural silence. The waitress's eyes never left the CEO, her whisper coiled through the cabin like smoke. "She is here. She wants you to hear the truth." The CEO's breath caught in his chest, because in the silence that followed, he swore he heard it too, a voice, faint, familiar, calling his name. The CEO froze, his ears straining against the hum of the engines. The voice came again. Soft, gentle, the same lullaby. rising faintly in the air without the waitress moving her lips. Passengers clutched their seats, wide-eyed, unsure if they were hearing it too. The CEO's chest tightened until he could hardly breathe. That was his mother's voice, the same tone that had comforted him as a child, now drifting across the cabin like a ghost. His knees buckled, and he sank into his seat. The waitress rocked the baby once more, her eyes shining with a secret she did not speak aloud. Then, as suddenly as it had come, the voice faded, the cabin lights steadied, the baby remained asleep, peaceful and still. The passengers whispered nervously, but no one dared ask questions. The CEO stared at the waitress, his face pale, his hands trembling, but she only placed the baby gently back into his arms. Her voice was calm, almost tender. "Take care of him? That is all she asks." And then she turned, walked back down the aisle, and sat silently in her seat. The plane flew on through the darkness, engines steady once more. But for the billionaire CEO, the night would never be the same, because no deal, no fortune, no empire could erase the truth he now feared. Some ties of blood reach further than death.